It's the worst of the CBC for December 18th, 2020, the show where I watch the CBC so you don't have to. All right, first we're going to actually start off with some good news. It sounds like bad news, but if you remember last week's episode of Uninterrupted, I now suffer from stage 4 metastatic brain cancer after listening to Kamala Harris talk about the meaning of Hanukkah. It is fatal. However, good news. Today on the CBC, Rosemary Barton interviewed Justin Trudeau, which gave me another bout of super brain cancer, which cancels out the other one, so now I'm fine. Because I'm double dying, 2 negatives make a positives, I'll be here forever. So, obviously the worst covered story is going to be the Rosemary Barton. I'm about to drive my head through a wall. I'm physically nauseous. It was amazing, and the fact that it actually made Justin Trudeau look good because Rosemary Barton was so bad at her job that I think Justin Trudeau was the more reasonable one here, which says a lot. When I'm like, okay, well, let's look at it. Looks like Justin Trudeau's being reasonable. So that is absolutely ridiculous. We'll get into that. But first, let you know, these episodes are now sponsored by our new homies at Battle Rhythm Beard Co. Listen, you have a face, I have a face. Should this face be the one that advertises beards to you? Probably not, but we're doing it anyway because they have more than just beard products. It's a Canadian-owned and operated company run by Canadian veterans. All proceeds, $1 of every product goes to Canadian veterans. No animal products used. They're veterans themselves. It's a great company. It's doing things the right way. It's reasonably priced. And now, special announcement, if you go through me or us, new promo code for Battle Rhythm Beard Co. Capitals, all caps, holidays. So you just type that in below, and if you want to get a Christmas gift for someone, support a Canadian veteran who supports Canadian veterans, who supports Canadian businesses. It's just the right way to do things, so thanks so much to them. Now, Rosemary Barton and Justin Trudeau. It was like, okay, there's going to be a full interview being aired on Rosemary Barton's Sunday show, and if I watch that, I will die of the aneurysm. So I can only give you the condensed version of, like, their super pro-Trudeau, like, propaganda. And it was so bad, like, you could tell they just, like, you know, they were on the right track of the questions, but, like, they just weren't, it was, like, it was just so frustrating, because they're asking Justin Trudeau about shutting down the border, and, like, they're giving him the, you didn't shut down the border fast enough, and then he gave the, well, I'm giving a reason why I was, not shutting down the border, to make him seem, like, more reasonable than he actually was. But the real thing was, he's like, they did in the sense of the Canadian-American border relative to when he shut down the international border. Not when did he shut down the international border relative to the pandemic. Okay, that was the big question. That was his big mistake. It's the fact that we had hotspots in Italy, Iran, and China, and he was saying, hotspots from a pandemic area and disease, come on in, doesn't matter. It wasn't until he shut the international border, and then he didn't shut the American border at the same time as the international border. And that was like, ooh, what are you doing? But you could so tell it was a pre-planned question because he didn't answer for it. And it was a good answer, right? Is you don't shut down the American border right away. You should take a few days to just make sure it's done properly, because you don't want to shut down everything. There's still tons of trade and resources and pharmaceuticals that run in between the border. You want to make sure that there's enough exceptions to keep the economies and everything cycling through, which is the right answer, and it was the right thing to do. However, the real thing was the fact that he was not shutting down the international border, that when the disease first happened, his response was not, we need to take this very seriously. It was, you need to go and lick a Chinese person or else you're racist, right? That was his real problem, not that he was so tough at the beginning. And then, like, they asked him another question, and thankfully Justin Trudeau isn't that good at politics. Like, I ended up giving an okay question answer to this, and it was a soft, like, all the questions from Rosemary Barton are just softballs to her boyfriend. And this one was basically like, it was the, how did it feel like in those days, in March, when you had to put restrictions on Canadians? And if he was smart, he would have gone something like, not good, Rosie. Like, I didn't like it. It doesn't sit well with me being in charge of people and limiting their freedoms. Like, it really doesn't sit well with me. But after I was convinced by experts, whenever we had to, and it eats at me, and I'm working on doing everything we can to get these restrictions out, because they really make me uncomfortable. That would have been a great answer. Like, that would have humanized him. But he gave this sort of the elitist leftist answer that will go really well with, like, the upper middle class, which was, I listened to the experts, and the experts said, and just when the experts said, I did this. So we listened to all the experts, which is like this false humility, right? And the reason why it's not going to play with everyone is, like, some people hold you as leader to a different standard, right? yes, the experts can say something, but the experts can say that, killing a baby to save 500 people is the right thing to do, right? But if you're the leader and you have to suffocate a baby, and yes, you might be doing it so the village can live, you still want to know that your leader is heartbroken that he has to suffocate said baby, right? That's the humanizing thing for Justin Trudeau. And thankfully, he wasn't savvy enough to do that. But just the questions from Rosemary Barton were softballs, poorly constructed. Like it was basically a media equivalent of a hand job, a media job, just stroking Justin Trudeau off. So again, it did give me cancer, but good thing is Kamala Harris talking about Hanukkah also gave me cancer, so these two cancers I have now balance out. So what does this get in the Rosemary Barton scale like? Obviously, there was too much Rosemary Barton today, so it's an 11 out of 10 on the Rosemary Barton scale of bias. Never watch the CBC again, and I'm going to go throw up now.